This is a James Poetry Consultant Moment. Hello, perceptive readers. This is a James Poetry Consultant Moment. I talk about Romans chapter 2, and I encourage you to read that whole account. And in it, God is relating to Paul of his goodness, see God's goodness, his mercy, his patience. And he also was impressing upon us that as we observed this goodness from God, you see, including, his mercy and things of that nature, that he asked the question of persons who he was talking to at that time. Were they appreciating really what God's goodness happened to be? Or were they actually upset about God's goodness? They didn't appreciate it. And so he even gave examples about, you condemning people, you're condemning persons for this and that. And he even said, but, you were doing the same things. You're practicing the same things. And he gave the example of stealing, you see, robbing and things of that nature, and how God will forgive persons of that. But here they were in their own unforgiveness or reasoning and things of that nature. It's almost like they weren't seeing the rafter in their own eyes of what they were doing. So with that being said, I want to also share with you, this is one of the reasons that we, not only practice what we preach, but also know when to stay neutral, to certain matters. You see, you've also heard me mention this in times past, that there are just certain priorities, certain ownership and rights that you have that no one else is supposed to encroach upon, no matter what, your relationship with God, you see. And then, people talk about your marriage mate or your family. Now, we could go into other areas of property and stuff, but no, I want to concentrate on those two. Why? Because of the simple fact, sometimes when people, and, I've used that example of extreme nosiness, and these are facts that I'm sharing with you, that sometimes when persons, once they cross that line, see, that's what I'm saying. Once they cross that line of neutrality, of getting into like a man's headship or between his worship and things of that nature, where they get all involved in it, then you know what? They're no longer neutral. So if this person actually was swindled, you see, conned, or what have you, out of their own inheritance and things of that nature, and you, who really have nothing to do with it, you're not part of their bloodline, you're not part of the family, or what have you, but you actually use all your resources and and promotions and things of that nature to be a part of it, then guess what? Are you just as much factored into the outcome of why that person may have had a very adverse ending to the whole situation? And I won't go any further with that. Now, I could give you another example, and I think I'll go ahead and tell you how this happens. There's been times where a husband and a wife could have had some difficulties, you see, in their marriage. Okay. And, some persons may go to marriage counselors or what have you. And as you know, once they even go to a marriage counselor, the marriage counselor, boy, has to be very careful with the way that they, implement their ideas or suggestions or what have you. Now, this also happens in spiritual settings, you see, from shepherds and things of that nature in spiritual environments. What should be the aim in all these professions is to still deal with that married couple in a way that they're not crossing the line of being neutral themselves. Uh, see, there's been advice at times that in the proper, the setting where it got husbands and wives off to a good start, you see, in the proper setting. They knew what they were going there for or what have you. But then imagine just happening to see, maybe the husband or the wife happen to see that same a spiritual leader or therapist or what have you, just in the coffee shop, happenstance. And the next thing you know, all the balanced, neutral counsel that was given, in the proper setting of the office, the couch, and all that, stuff like that. But imagine then the therapist crossing the line and start saying things that really, I'm telling you, like I said, when I say cross the line, really goes beyond the neutral stance that they were taking in the office to deal with both of them in a very dignified manner. And next thing you know, just start ripping, the other person's, better half, mate, wife, husband, or what have you apart. And the next thing you know, just by that one meeting, that one happenstance of bumping into one another, guess what? Next thing you know, person's heading for divorce, where it's almost like they were totally having it together just maybe a few days before because of the properly given neutral counsel or advice from the therapist. Now, see, this is my question. When a divorce like that happens, you see what I'm saying? Would you say then, because of the therapist crossing the line in that way, that they went into a form of malpractice of what their own discipline and degree was supposed to be in? See, that's a question. I haven't said this in a long time, but as spiritual people at times too, you see, in that type of heavy responsibility, you have to make sure that you don't even go into spiritual malpractice. You see, and then on top of that, if depending on the damage that is caused sometimes, why in the world do even doctors have to pay all that money in malpractice insurance? You see, why? Because there's many factors that go into that. But see, it still goes to show really again for persons that if someone is severely harmed, that will affect them, especially in a financial way and things of that nature, they're contributing to that. If that person ends up out on the street and you played a factor in that, but then want to act like you didn't hear or listen to the cries that was going out, well, I'm just telling you again, you like from Romans chapter 2, we all have to just look at times still what we're doing to either help or harm the situation. And if through what we are doing as license this or license that really just totally mess the whole situation up, then you know what? Depending on the level of negligence, you see, it's not no simple thing to still be blaming the person that had to go through hell because of our insensitivity towards the matter. That's just something to think about. This was the James Paul Usher Consulting Moment. Take care.